All right, looks like I went live. I think we're live enough. Trying to work out some mic issues here. Let me know if the mic sounds bad or not. Got to get my D2L going. Pull up a couple things here. Welcome, guys, to our class this week, doing chapter 18, labor markets, which are jacked right now. Give me a shout out if you're here yet. A shout out, that sounds stupid. There she is. Alyssa's always here early. Alyssa's a good student. We got a couple in here. We got a couple of you guys that are always just like boom in there, on it. Hear me fine? Good, Colby. Good to see you, bud. How's everybody hanging in there? You guys got the Rona yet? Everybody staying safe. I think this is going to end up being not as bad as people think. That's my. There's been a lot of discussion about should economists be in the conversation or not. Of course, I think we should be in the conversation. Hey, Tyler. I think we should be in the conversation, but there's a lot of public health officials that don't seem to see it that way. Bugs. So we'll give people a chance to get here. I got to pull up the Chapter 18 study guide on D2L. I got your tests. Your last test, I think you guys saw on D2L. You can check your scores on your last test. They were okay. Test scores were fine. Had to hook you guys up with a little extra credit, but that's all right. You deserve it. It's been a tough run here. Everybody deserves a little break every now and then, huh? So, as people filter in, let me see. I want that. Don't want that one. Oh, excuse me. This chapter can take a long time. I'm gonna put it up here. Chapter 18. It can take a while, so I'm going to try to get through it. And hold on a second. What's going wrong here? It's like my internet's pretty good. I was worried anybody get impacted by the storm. And that storm come through, that was pretty bad. I drove over to Zebulon Road today and looked, and the Kroger out there took some damage. CVS took some damage. The Navicent little building there took some damage. Looks like Chick-fil-A survived okay. Chicken fillet sandwich made it. And but the banks took some of the banks there took some damage. I'm not sure if that was tornadic or just straight line winds, but that storm was pretty something. It woke me up last night. I was awake. If any of you guys took any damage. It's not very chatty. You guys aren't as chatty as regular streams. People are always want to. Hey Zach, everybody always wants to out chat the other people on Twitch. It's that gamer mentality. We got Alyssa, Colby, Tyler, Zach. Who else we got out there? Wait till we get 10 of you. 9. I think there's only 9 in the class. Until we get 7. When we get 7, we'll be up and running. So I hope everybody survived the storms last night. Oh, you're good. But did they so they probably came through earlier for you, Alyssa. So you just left. You said, I'm not going to stay in Macon. I'm just going to Tennessee. It's a good place to be quarantined. Pretty safe up there in the mountains. It's not all of Tennessee is mountains. All right. Looks like we got some people filtering in here. Appreciate you guys showing up. We're going to knock out a quick chapter 18 today. This week is your test. I'm going to give you an online test. It'll be just a very standard take-home format. And I will post the test on D2L. I may just have you write your answers in a Word document, some kind of just Microsoft Word. You had to, you don't want to be there, Alyssa. Sorry, you got your parents home. That happens. I just let my kid fend for himself. He's up in Atlanta. He's in the land of the Rona. He was working until last week. I think the restaurant he worked at finally shut down. They were doing takeout, and now he's just sitting around playing computer games. He's like, it's been kind of fun. It's like a vacation. And I'm like, yeah, not. This quarantine is not a vacation. Okay, let me go ahead and get rolling on this. People will be filtering in. It's fine. I want to get through the material, get you guys on out of here for showing up early. Make sure I don't make you guys wait around on the others. Hey, Emily, thanks for showing up. Appreciate it. About to get started here. Your job's still going, Jack? That's good. Mine is too. I'm doing it right now. You guys knew that. Sometimes there's an echo. There's an echo in my voice. So, chapter 18 is the factor market. The markets for land, labor, and capital. We call these the factors of production. Land is the raw materials, the natural resources. Labor is workers, and capital is the physical machinery of business. Right now, my computer is the physical capital that I'm using in the production of educational services. So, all the stuff we got here, my iPad. A big old iPad that I used to run. My pen was out of power, so I'm charging it. It might take 5 or 10 minutes to charge, so I'm not gonna be able to draw anything for a minute. But when I do, hey Elijah, or Alhaj, sorry, messed up your name there. I don't read names very well. Thanks for showing up. Appreciate it, guys. Is this the way we're gonna do class forever? You think we're just gonna go full online? It's not a bad format. God, beats the heck out of getting ready, taking a shower, driving into work, finding a parking space, walking into the building, getting interrupted by people, having administrators make you do busy work. And you can just be productive doing it this way. The social distancing thing is starting to wear on me, though. I think we are genetically programmed to be about 3 feet away from each other. Unless you're homeless, then it's like 10. And I just it's awkward. You don't want to be too close. You don't want to get into anybody's personal space. So that's always awkward if someone is like a real close talker when they get up in your face and they're like within 2 feet, and you're kind of like, yeah, you're kind of in my bubble, my happy bubble. I want you to get out of my happy bubble. That bubble's about 3 feet. That's about arm's length. It's about long enough where if you have to, you can hit the person in the face, but if they try to swing, you can get out of the way. And I think that genetically we're kind of just defensively programmed to keep that distance. We feel we're in our comfort zone when we're about 3.5 feet away from people. And now that we have to be 6 feet away, your subconscious is thinking about that, and it's saying, there's something wrong with this person, or they think that I think something is wrong with them because I'm keeping a wider. It's just like bad body language. It's just inappropriate body language to be standoffish like that. I mean, that's why we have a word for it, standoffish, right? That's considered, what you do with undesirable people. You stand off. So I think that's going to have an impact on us. I think that's going to wear on us. And I think it's going to tear at the social fabric a little bit. We'll see. I mean, we all kind of know consciously, right? We all know consciously what we're doing, and no one seems to really, worry about it too much. I'm just worried that subconsciously that those kind of deeper recesses of our brain that are interpreting signals and governing a lot of our automated functions, those kind of things might raise stress levels in people. If you notice that, I've seen people getting really frustrated. People are getting kind of snippy. So be on the lookout for that. This is a little advice for you guys. Be on the lookout for that. There's all these things that are messing with us right now. So anyhow, so we got land, labor, and capital, factors of production. They have their own markets. The cool thing about the factor markets is it's really just like supply and demand, except instead of having prices and quantities, we change the we change the axes names, and we use for the labor markets, which we'll focus on primarily in this chapter. The labor markets use, instead of price, they use the wage rate, and instead of quantity, that seems kind of rude or crude to call workers a quantity of workers. It sounds kind of inhuman. So we talk about the supply of labor, or the labor hours, or the man hours. One of those kind of terms. So, by the way, my internet was jacked this morning from the storm, but it seems like it's running pretty well now. I've got actually as good an internet as I've had in a long time. Maybe everybody else's internet is out, and so they're not hogging it right now. So, so when we talk about the factor markets, remember that ownership of the factors of production are in the hands of the households. And that's an important part of what free market capitalism is all about, is that the land, labor, and capital belongs to you, the individual, the household. And what you want to do is think about how do you sell something to someone else and still maintain ownership of it? Well, you don't sell it, you rent it, right? So actually what you do with your labor is you don't sell your labor. Hey, Aladdin. Welcome, Aladdin. You don't sell your labor to people. That would be indentured servitude. What you do is you lease or you rent your labor. And at any point, you can break that lease. You can quit your job and say, you know what, I am no longer going to be leasing my services to you. Thank you very much. Same token, they can say, you know what, we don't want to lease your services anymore. You are free to go. Fine, sir. And when you leave, when you quit or when they fire you, that just terminates that lease, that rental contract where they're renting your labor resources for that. It's very, very explicit. As a professor at Middle Georgia State University, I have every year they give me a 10-month contract, and that covers me from September to. Is the stream buffering? I've got good signal here. Is that might be on your end? Is anybody else having buffering problems? I'm not using a lot of stuff, so you might maybe you can change the setting. Well, that could be on YouTube's end. Eesh. Yeah, I'm showing strong signal here, which is odd. Normally my signal is bad. Now if it's on my end, I apologize. There's nothing really I can do about that. Like I said, we had storms come through and they knocked out some of the internet. It was bad this morning. It looks like it's fine now though. Hopefully that's not. Yours is good, Alyssa. Yeah, maybe on your end, Katrina. You may reboot, or you may be able. Is there a way to change the settings? Yeah, turn the quality down. Good. That's what I was about to say. Down is in the bottom right-hand corner, the settings in the live feed. You can, I don't know where the settings are. That might not be in the bottom right. I think it's in the bottom right. You can lower the quality to a lower resolution, and that might help. It'll look worse, but it'll sound better. Sorry about that. And then that's going to be an issue with some of these things. And by the way, if you do have a problem with it, you can always go back later and watch the video on demand when your internet's not jacked. My internet was jacked up this morning. So leasing your labor, and also when we talk about land markets and capital markets, we assume that the households maintain ownership of those, even when they lease them to the firm. Now, in the real world, if you're a firm, you're on the supply side, the left side of the circular flow diagram that we've been talking about all semester. If you're a firm, in the real world, you can own land, right? If you have a business, an LLC, you've incorporated an S corp or whatever, and you're a corporation. That corporation is a political entity. It's a legal entity that has certain rights that are very much along the lines of human rights, people rights, right? There's a term, I forgot the term. I'm trying to think of the term for that. But like personage or something. I think it's called personage. And the fact that a firm can maintain the legal concept of personage, that may not be it, but I think you kind of know what I'm trying to say there, means that it can have the same rights as a household, as a person in a household, right? They can have the same rights to own land and capital. So if you have a business, you might buy, if you're a farmer and you have, Lane Packing Company, peach farmer here in Georgia, down in Perry, Fort Valley, that area. Lane Packing, Duke Lane and his son and grandson run Lane Packing Company. They're the owners, and so that they have rights as people and legal rights as people because they're people. But the company itself is a corporation, is an entity, and the individuals in that family don't really own the land. The company owns the land. So that sounds like we've actually transferred ownership from households to the firms. And in a legal sense, we kind of do that in the real world. But at the end of the day, it's individuals that own those firms, and it's the family that owns that company and that land. So we always think of legally, it always goes back to the person. That's why they're the last one that's liable for anything if there's any kind of lawsuit or something like that. It goes back to the people. So don't confuse the real world. In a pure economic sense, in a free market capitalist sense, the theory is that individuals, households own the factors of production, and all they do is lease them or rent them. So we don't use the price of labor. Now, there's a completely different market where you can buy and sell those between households, but let's not worry about that. We're talking about transferring the use of those to the firms so they can make goods and services and provide to consumers. So you don't have a price, you have a wage rate for labor, but you have a rental rate for capital and a rental rate for land. So that's the price, and then you have a quantity of land, a quantity of labor, which we call man hours or whatever, and then we have a quantity of capital that you can lease. And those are three independent markets that function together as a whole as the factor markets. Okay, so that's the basic idea of this chapter is how do these factor markets work, and in particular, how does the labor market work? We're going to get a little more in depth here in a second into labor supply and labor demand, and we want to specifically look at the demand for labor that any given firm has, and how that demand that each firm has for labor can be combined into a market demand for labor, and then that market demand for labor is just a basic downward sloping demand curve, just like we've seen. But notice it's the firms that are demanding the labor, and it's the households that are supplying. So the market has reversed from the way we were doing it in the product market. The product market, the firms were supplying and the households were demanding. Now we have the households supplying and the firms demanding. So it's flip-flopped. Keep that straight. I'm hoping that my pen has charged sufficiently now to use my drawing thing. I think it probably has. Let's see here. Oh, by the way, look at what's going on with the Federal Reserve. We've gone from a balance sheet of $4 trillion to a balance sheet of $6 trillion in a matter of a month. We've added $2 trillion to the Fed's balance sheet. That's $2 trillion of new money that's been created in a month. We only have about $1 trillion worth of currency in circulation, and we just added 2 trillion to it. That's gonna be interesting. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out. What you guys can guess what happens when you have a lot of money chasing fewer goods. You got a lot of dollars chasing fewer goods. And I want to make sure everybody gets this. This is an important concept that I've been seeing major players in decisions that are being made right now in Congress and in Washington, all of the president's office and the public health officials who are making all of these decisions. They don't seem to understand what an economy is. And I want you guys to think about what you've learned this semester and about the circular flow diagram and what it is. It's how we take our scarce resources, our land, labor, and capital, and convert those into valuable goods and services. And remember, that's flowing around the middle of the circular flow diagram. Those resources just keep flowing around and around and around. And then money flows the other way, right? But it's the movement of those resources, the movement of the land, labor, and capital that determines our economic well-being, the supply of goods and services that we need, whether it's toilet paper or whatever, right? That stuff has to be moving. That stuff has to be cranking around. And all of those, that's our standard of living is a direct result of how well and how efficiently we convert our raw materials into final goods and services. That's what our standard of living is all about. That money flowing around the outside is the result of all of that activity. It helps to guide that activity. It helps to determine what we make and how much of that stuff we make. It sends a powerful signal. It establishes the prices of those scarce goods and services. But what's the problem right now in the economy? And this is but people just, it's like they're boohooing economists like, oh, we got this. We're public health officials. We know how to save lives. All right. Good luck with that if you don't understand math and how the economy works. Because I think there's a lot of critical mistakes being made right now, and nobody seems to fully appreciate what we're in for in terms of the economics. We've got a honeymoon right now. We've had a 2-week vacation where everybody has plenty of food on the table. Everybody has plenty of things to get done around the house. We haven't gotten bored yet. I don't know. You guys have probably gotten a little bit bored. Most of us haven't gotten bored yet. But we're in the factor markets now, and we're land, labor, and capital. The raw materials have to flow, and firms have to employ those resources to make goods and services. And what has been shut down right now? Well, it's not the money flowing around the outside that was just turned off, right? This wasn't a money problem. It was an economic problem. It was shutting down land, labor, and capital. It was shutting down the factors of production. This chapter couldn't be more timely. And I really want you guys to appreciate how catastrophic it is when you interrupt this system and what it looks like. Now you've got the theoretical tools with this chapter to kind of diagnose this situation and say, are we making good decisions here or not? And how many people are just completely ignoring the underlying economics because we have completely shut down the economics to get through this pandemic. And there's uncertainty. We don't know how bad it might have been or will be. So we're taking extreme measures, but very few people are talking about how bad the economy is going to be. All they did was they just passed a bill to throw $2 trillion. And that's what that little blip at the end there, that's the Fed creating that money. Like I said, the problem in the economy right now is not a lack of money. Look at we had $4.5 trillion of money, $4.2 trillion worth of money out there. This is the Fed's asset side. The liability side is identical to this, but it's the cash side. So if this goes up, the cash goes up. So this might as well be what the cash. Well, it's the deposits and the reserves and cash in circulation. But we had plenty of money. What we don't have is productivity. We don't have people working. People are sitting at home not working. They're not doing anything. And when you got a lot of people sitting around not doing anything, what does that do to the size of the economy? Well, it shrinks it. And just giving people money doesn't make goods and services magically appear out of the void. That's not how economies work. Real people and real resources have to do real things and make real products, real goods and services in order for us to have a decent standard of living. And there's already not enough to go around. That's the lesson. And now we've just made it worse. Now, granted, the logic is we would have overwhelmed the hospitals and we would have had a lot of needless death had we not done this. But you remember, one of the lessons I've been teaching you guys all semester long is always when someone says we have to do something very dramatic or draconian, always ask, at what cost? And the cost is going to be in the decrease in productivity. And all the money in the world is not going to change that. All the money in the world right now is not going to open up restaurants and have them producing hamburgers. Just because they're paying their workers doesn't mean it's working. There's nothing to be made. There's no hamburgers being made. And what happens if we don't make hamburgers? We get hungry, right? And when we get hungry for too long, we start to get malnourished. And I mean, our standard of living falls. So right now we have enough kind of in the pipeline. We had enough resources and enough inventory in the pipeline so that a couple of weeks nobody notices. There's just plenty of stuff to go around, except toilet paper for some reason. I bought a bunch of toilet paper. I'm getting on the toilet paper bandwagon. If everybody else is, I'm not even like spazzing. I'm not even panicking about toilet paper. But the fact that everybody else is buying all the toilet paper, I'm like, well, damn, I better get some before they all buy it, or I won't have any. I'm like, would everybody just stop buying toilet paper for a second? I mean, no one's gonna buy toilet paper for the next 3 years after all this because they just bought way too much toilet paper. There's also a bunch of toilet paper that's out there that normally goes to restaurants and stuff, and that toilet paper is not being used. So there's these big warehouses full of commercial and industrial toilet paper, but the residential toilet paper that we buy at Kroger and Walmart, that's the one that we're all hitting really hard right now, and that one's depleting. So I don't know. That's that. So just so you know, there's a lot of craziness going on right now. There's a lot of weird things happening, and I've been buying time while my pen charges. I think it's probably good now. File. Maybe it's good now. Hold on. Oh, come on. Get my pen set up. Hold on. Hold on. Let me try this. Gosh dang it. All right. Give me 1 second. BRB. I got to get this plug in. All right, I think I got it. All right, got that much. Well, I see the pencil. Hold on, let me do this. Don't save. Let me relaunch Paint. Hold on. Pretty good production quality here, huh? I want to draw. Oh. Well, it's kind of working. Why is that not working? Does that have to be in? Oh wait, there we go. All right, it's stupid. Well, no. Don't save. Oh, Jiminy crickets. I don't know. I got nothing. I have to use my mouse. This is gonna be ugly, but we'll do it. We'll just make it work. Sorry about that. Don't know why that's not working. The pen's just not wanting to work for me. All right. Yeah, it's not gonna work. Okay, so let me pull up my sorry about that delay, just technology. So what we're going to do is talk about the labor market. Sorry for the delay. And we want to think in terms of having a competitive labor market and a competitive product market. So let's assume that what we're doing is we're running an apple picking firm. All right, we're gonna pick apples. We're gonna sell those apples on the open market. It's a competitive labor market, so we need to hire apple pickers, and we're gonna do something like this. It's going to let me see. We're gonna hire a quantity of labor. All right, L, and we want to look at the quantity of output. See, I can't do this very well. All right, so we want to look at number of labor, the quantity of output, and let's just start. We're assuming that we've got a couple of ladders, one or two ladders. So we're going to be operating in the short run here because we have a fixed input. And what's the problem with being in the short run? Well, having only one ladder, let's say, as we hire more and more workers, they're going to become less and less productive. They're not going to be able to pick as many apples as the previous workers because that fixed unit of capital has to be shared among more and more workers as we hire more and more workers. So we want to look if we hire 1 worker, 2 workers, 3 workers, 4 workers, 5 workers. Not bad. I can do this. I got this. And what's the quantity of output? Let's say if we hire one worker and we take him and our ladder to the apple orchard, and we're just going to assume that those land resources are free. Apples are just all around. We're going to get an output of 100 apples. All right. Now, if we hire a second worker, we'll be able to pick 190 apples. So what did you notice about hiring that first worker and then the second worker? Well, our output went up, which is expected. If you hire more workers, you can produce more apples, you can pick more apples. But notice that the second worker's productivity did not make as many apples as the first worker. And that's because the first worker had the whole ladder to himself, and now they're having to share the ladder. Turns out that doesn't hurt them too bad, but it does create a little bit of downtime. One can be kind of picking the low-hanging fruit on a tree, and then while the other is using the ladder, and then they can flip-flop. There's just a little bit of downtime moving that ladder around, so that's hurt the overall productivity. Both of them are picking about 95 apples. I think I wanted to do 180. It's all right. That'll work. If we hire a third worker, we find that we get 250 apples. And then there we go. So what's happening? As we hire more and more workers, we get more and more apples. But this brings up a concept we need to look at called the marginal product of labor, the MPL. The marginal product of labor is the contribution to total output, and Q is total output, L is the amount of workers that we're hiring, the labor resources that we're hiring. Marginal product of labor is how much the next worker produces for us. So the first worker produces 100 apples. Notice that the second worker is only worth 90. The third only adds 60 to total output. I should have gone more here. That's all right. The fourth worker adds 20. And the fifth worker only adds 10 to the total output. So notice what's happening to the marginal product of labor, the contribution of total output for hiring the next worker. It goes down and down and down. So you go from the first worker being able to produce 100 apples for us to the fifth worker only adds an additional 10 apples. I usually use different numbers, but doing this like this has messed up my numbers. That's all right. I can normally do 100, 180, 230, 250, 260, something like that. Doesn't matter. It's fine. I got coronavirus. You hear me sneeze? And so the question is, why are we hiring these workers to pick apples for us? Well, because we want to sell those apples in the product market, and there's a price for apples. Let's just assume that we can sell those apples for $2 a piece. These are very nice apples, by the way. There you go. $2 a piece. So whether we hire one worker and produce 100 apples, or two workers and make 190 apples, or three workers and make a total of 250, etc., the price is not going to change because we've already assumed a competitive output market. So the price, make another 2 there. The price is always $2, no matter how many workers we hire and how many apples we produce. The price does not change. Well, that brings up another concept called the value marginal product of labor. Now, this is why we work. We work to create value. This is my little rant earlier about nobody understanding the economy. They think it's just you give people money and the economy works. No, that only works if that money encourages firms to produce more goods and services, which generates more jobs, which gets more people actively participating in the economy, pitching in to help out and produce goods and services for the betterment of everybody. If we just give people money and then say, don't go to work, do you see how that's just totally stupid? I hope you see the lunacy in this. We're literally telling people, don't go out. So let's not make anything in the economy, but here's a bunch of money to replace your paycheck that you would have gotten for working. Do the people that came up with that idea have any idea where that money, why you get money for working? It's because you are valuable. You produce things of value. And this value marginal product of labor is the measure of that. It's the metric, how we measure what your contribution to the economy is worth. And it's going to be interesting because in a second, you're going to see that that's exactly what you get paid, is what you're worth in an economy. It's why people who make a lot of things for a lot of people, like Bill Gates, who made a lot of stuff for a lot of people, or Apple Corporation, whatever that guy's name was, Stephen Jobs, who made a lot of iPhones for a lot of people, or LeBron James, who provides a lot of basketball entertainment services for a lot of people. By the way, is he doing that right now? No. What's LeBron James's value marginal product of labor when he's working? It's millions of dollars per year that he's worth, that he's valued. The product of his labor. Watching him play basketball is something that people find a ton of value in, are willing to pay top dollar to see that level of human athleticism, that we can just sit there and it makes us feel good. It inspires us. It gives us something to work towards and to think about it and be. It's good entertainment. It's fun. It beats back the monotony of life. What's LeBron James's value marginal product of labor right now? How many basketballs is he shooting? How much entertainment is he providing us right now? I'll tell you what it did is that value that he was creating in the economy is gone. It's gone to zero. And let me show you how we calculate. It's a very simple equation. Just take the marginal product of labor, multiply it times the price of the output, and that's your value marginal product of labor. Okay? People behind me and my neighbors have a dog, and they take the dog outside, and then I don't know if you can hear it, but they implore their puppy to go potty, and they're like, "Good boy, go potty. Good boy, go potty." And they're saying that now, and that's just annoying. The dog has to go potty right outside my window, apparently. I hope they heard me. Complaining. All right. So the first worker produces 100 apples for us, and we can sell those apples for $2 a piece. That means that the first worker has a value marginal product of $200. That worker is worth $200 to us. That's how much value that worker has produced. All right. The second worker produces 180. $180 worth of value marginal product. The value marginal product of labor of the second worker is 180. What's this guy or lady? 120, 40, 20. What do we notice? As we hire more and more workers, notice that they're becoming less and less valuable to us. Remember, I'm assuming we're in the short run. We only have one ladder. And as we hire more and more workers, a lot of them are just sitting around. They're not able to pick a lot of apples because the apple trees are already kind of being worked on by the previous workers. There's no, everybody's already picked the low-hanging fruit. Everybody's waiting around on the ladder. By the time you hire the fifth worker, they're just sitting there doing nothing. All right, and barely. So they're only picking 10 apples for you in a day, and you can only sell those for that. So there's that. So let's understand that the value marginal product of labor is what you're worth. That's what you're worth to the firm. You see this? And it's diminishing. And this is 100% always happens. You got diminishing marginal product of labor, and you got the diminishing value marginal product of labor in the short run. At some point, it doesn't make sense to keep hiring workers because they're just not making enough money for you. You're going to lose money if you hire more and more workers at some point. Well, these workers aren't free, right? We have to pay a wage rate. You got to pay a wage rate for these workers. And I'm going to assume that the wage rate for a worker, it's a short day, just a 4-hour work day or something. is $40. So whether we hire 1 or 2 workers or 3 workers or 4 workers or 5 workers, we always have to pay $40 a day for them. Okay? So the question is, how many workers do we want to hire? And look at how this works. As it turns out, the value marginal product of labor is the marginal benefit to the firm of hiring. It's marginal benefit of hiring the next worker, and the wage rate is the marginal cost. That's what it costs us to hire. It costs us $40 to hire the second worker. It costs us $40 to hire the third worker. So the wage rate is the marginal cost. And the second worker is worth $180. The third adds $120 into our accounts receivable, right? And so he's worth $120. And so look at this fifth worker. What's the problem with the fifth worker? The fifth worker is worth $20 to us, but would cost us $40. Do we want to hire that fifth worker? Should be pretty obvious to you. We would lose $20 on that person. I mean, no, let's not do that. Do we want to hire the first worker? The first worker is worth $200 to us, only costs $40. Hell yeah. So as long as the marginal benefit is greater than the marginal cost, then you want to increase the level of activity. You want to keep going with higher and higher levels of activity. So it's good. It's from 1 to 2. And what do we get there? 180. Oh, still marginal benefit is still greater than the marginal cost. What about the third? Yep, marginal benefit. Uh-oh, what do you see here? They're equal. Remember what the marginal principle was? You set the marginal benefit equal to the marginal cost, and then you stop, and that's when you've reached some level of optimality. Well, that means that 4, it's a star, 4 is the optimal quantity of labor. That's L star is equal to 4. And that means that 270 is Q star. And if you recall from the earlier chapters, what does maximizing our quantity of output do for us as a firm? If we maximize the quantity of output, we're going to maximize our profits. So that's an important result that we already know. We're going to add that in here. We know that when a firm produces the optimal quantity of labor, they create maximum profits. I just put an arrow through my head. Did you guys notice that? Something I've never done before in a class. But this is an important result here. Look at this. We've hired the right number of workers. Hiring the extra worker is going to cut into our profits. And we've produced the right quantity. We haven't produced too little or too much. Remember, what's the problem with producing too little of something? Well, you're leaving money on the table. What's the problem with producing too much of something? Well, you're going to be making stuff at a loss. You're going to be making stuff that the costs of producing it exceed the revenues, the benefits you can get from it, and that's going to hurt you. That's going to hurt you in the long run there, and hurt you in the short run for that matter. So this little dealio here shows us that this is the right way to be right there. That's the right way to be. All right. Pretty happy with that. You guys happy with that? Pretty obvious what we were doing there. It's a lot, but I think it makes sense to people once you kind of understand what's going on. And we got to be careful because there's so much garbo out there. Like I said, you get politicians talking about economics, and you get people out there who aren't trained economists who think they know economics. Look, I don't know public health. I'm relying on the public health people to be upfront with us about how dangerous this coronavirus is and how I have to behave. And I'm taking their advice. They're saying wash your damn hands, and I'm washing my damn hands. They're cracking. I'm like washing my hands until they're bleeding. I'm going to die of bloody hands, not the coronavirus. But I just trust them. I understand that they know how to do stuff. So I'm not licking doorknobs. I'm social distancing, which is the most awkward thing on the planet, and I'm quarantining myself. I went fishing this weekend with some friends, so I'm not doing a great job. So I'm kind of lying to you. I'm not doing everything right. I'm kind of cheating a little bit. I'm going over to another friend's house today. We're gonna go fishing. I'm gonna do a lot of fishing during this vacation. So a friend of mine has a trout pond. I'm gonna go do that, and I'm gonna go do some fun stuff tomorrow. I'm starting to get bored, but up until this point, I've been pretty good about listening to public health officials and doing what they say because they're the expert. They're the trained professionals. They're the ones who know how bad this disease is and how bad it's going to get us and how to prevent it. But they need to listen to us when it comes to the economy, because you hear a lot of politicians and a lot of these folks coming up with all these like bizarro theories about economics, which don't make any sense. And then they act like they know what they're talking about. And since no one understands economics, they get away with really bizarre policies. Just replacing the wage rate. Look at what just replacing the wage rate does. If all you do is just pay your workers those $40 for the 4 workers, per day there. If all you do is that, and then you tell them not to pick apples, all right, that's fine. These 4 people have $40 to pay their bills with, right? But what do they not have? Well, they don't have any apples to eat. Do you get that? Does that make sense? It does us no good. And what if all that there is in this economy to do is to buy apples? So they get $40 to buy apples with, and what's the problem? Nobody's picking any apples. If nobody's picking any apples, then what the hell good does $40 do? I mean, you can just sit there and you can make like origami with the $40, little dollar bill origami. You can do that. That'd be kind of fun for a while till you got hungry and wanted an apple. So there's a, I don't know. Maybe they know something I don't know. Maybe there's just some magic econ fairy that just makes goods and services for free and bestows them upon us in times of need. Maybe that's how it works, and I'm just not aware of this magical econ fairy. It's gonna magically make all these goods and services for us while we sit on our asses at home and count our $40 that they're giving us, or $1,200. You might get a $1,200 check yet. I said we're good right now. We have enough apples right now. Okay, that's what I'll make clear about this. If you're wondering, well, but that's not. There's still stuff to buy. Yeah, there is for now, but not a lot of stuff is being made. Did you guys hear that there was a pork processing plant that is shut down? Hear about that? So there's bacon today. Why? Well, because the bacon that is on the shelves today was produced over the last month. That was in the supply pipeline over the last month. So the bacon there today is there. But guess what's not going to replace that bacon when it all sells out? Because the pork plant shut down. And no more bacon coming. Don't panic, because that's silly. And it's just one pork plant that had an outbreak of coronavirus among the workers. So they shut the thing down. But let's hope that doesn't happen everywhere. Nothing wrong with the pigs. The pigs are still, edible. They're still yummy, but no one's there to kill them and cut them up and put them into bacon packaging for us. All right, what do we got here? Let's graph this real fast. I'm gonna graph it over here in the corner because I don't want to start a new one. Let's put the value marginal product of labor up there. The VMP. Oh, messed that up. VMPL over here. And that's in dollars, right? And let's put the quantity of labor here. And let's look at that. The value marginal product of labor starts up here at 200 and goes all the way down to 20. That's the VMPL. All right. And the wage rate is down here. Oh, I'm off the screen. Hold on. Hold on, let me do this. There. Sorry about that. And there's the wage rate, and that's at 40, right? That's 40. This started up here at 200. I'll just give you some reference there. Okay, you down with that? That started at 200, comes to 40. And what is this? Well, right where they cross is right at 40, and that's L star, which was equal to 4 workers. Okay, so that's how we think about it. That downward sloping value marginal product of labor curve is actually the demand curve, and that wage rate going across the right to the right is the supply curve. Right now, to one single firm, that supply curve looks perfectly elastic. and the downward sloping demand curve is the value marginal product of labor for one firm. But you add all these together for all of the firms, and you'll find a couple of things happen. First, the value marginal product of labor. When you go to all the firms in the overall market and add them all up, this just becomes, the wage rate. That's wage, and this is labor, all right? So this is still dollars, but we're thinking about it in terms of wage now. So that changes. The value marginal product of labor just becomes the demand curve for labor. That's all. I'll just go with that. And there's the supply curve. That's all of the firms see a little part of that, so it looks flat to them. But overall, it's an upward sloping supply curve. And that right there is what determines that $40 wage rate in the first place. That's where that $40 wage came from in the overall market. Now, what happens if the price of apples goes up? If the price of apples goes up to $4, right? If the price of apples goes up to $4, what changes? Well, everything over here, the value marginal product of labor, just all these double. They go times 2, right? All of these go 2x. That would take this up to 40, which would mean, and this up to 80, which would mean you'd actually want to go and hire the next worker. What does that look like? Well, that would cause the value marginal product of labor curve just to shift over in that direction, and that causes us to want to hire 5 workers. So changes in the output price will influence how many workers a firm wants to hire. So if you have an increase in the output price from 2 to 4, that's just 4, and that goes to 40. If the output price increases, then you'll want to hire more workers. What if the output price of apples decreases down to $1? If it goes down to 1, then this worker is no longer worth 40, they're only worth 20. And if they still cost 40, guess what? You're going to have to let that worker go. You've just lost a worker. Guess what the problem is when people don't buy things, like we're not buying things right now? You see the price of gas falling. You see the prices, we're having some deflation right now. As prices fall, the value marginal product of labors of workers falls, and they become less profitable to the firm. And so what have restaurants been doing with their workers as they're not only has the price of the goods that they're selling been diminished, but also the quantity that they're purchasing. When you're sitting at home, you're not waiting tables, right? That's just gone to zero. That's made the workers worth nothing. And how long can you pay workers who have zero value marginal product? How long can you pay them $40? Well, until you run out of money, that's how long. And that's why they've been laid off. And just replacing those salaries only fixes that salary problem. It doesn't create more goods and services, which is the big problem in the economy right now. And that estimates are that we're losing about 20 to 30% of our productivity right now. We've just taken a massive hit to our productivity, and it's voluntary. It's 100% voluntary. No, 20% of the labor force did not die from the virus, right? We literally just lost productivity because public health officials told us it was necessary. They understand the virus. I hope they understand how much this costs. I hope they understand if they're thinking, oh, wait, this is going to be free because all we got to do is get the federal government to give everybody a check to replace their salary and the economy is fine. No, it's not. And that seems to be what they're thinking. It seems to be because what do they keep saying? Oh, well, we need to push it back another month. Well, there's another 10% productivity for the year. One more month, another 10%. If we go 4 months, we're going to lose 40% of the economy. And what does that mean? When we don't have all of that money, what are we going to give up? Are we going to give up national security? We have to give up a little bit of that. Are we going to give up some education? What if we give up some national security? What does that mean? It means people will die from a lack of national security. What if we give up other health care in the future? Well, that's going to mean that people die from a lack of health care. What if we give up education spending? Well, that means people are going to die of stupidity, right? There's real consequences to this behavior, and it's not the money. and the money doesn't fix it anyways. It's the trade-off. It's the lack of production. So I hope I'm stressing this enough. I just want to make sure that at least 7 students out there know what the hell we're getting ourselves into here. Don't panic. I don't want you guys to panic. I don't want you to feel we can get this back on track. But what we're going to have to probably do is we're all going to have to realize, and the public health officials and the politicians who are making all of these decisions are going to have to face the consequences of their decisions. And when they do, they'll realize that they can't do it anymore. And they're going to have to say, okay, guys, we got to get back to work. We didn't realize that you couldn't just throw money at the problem. So when they learn that lesson, and you and I are going to pay for that, but that's fine. We'll handle it. It'll make us tougher. I'm not worried about that, but I just wish they would have asked beforehand. So if all of the firms start buying, so if the price of apples goes up to $4 and we have this situation over here where there's an increase in the demand for the quantity of labor, that's going to cause an overall demand. If all the firms are responding to that, that's going to cause the wage rate to go up, and then you have to bring that new wage rate of, say, $50 back into the equation, and that's how the economy works. And redo it, rinse, wash, rinse, repeat, right? Just keep going through the same process over and over and over again. Let me make sure I keep track of the time here. I got 45 more minutes, or 15 more minutes. It's been going a long time already. Okay, so let me get through this. Real quickly, I think the important lesson that I want to leave you guys with before we go on to a couple more things here is this. Remember, in order for the firm to maximize its profits down here, right, behind my head, profits. In order for the firm to maximize your profits down here, they got to produce the right quantity. To produce the right quantity, they got to hire the right amount of labor. To hire the right amount of labor, they have to use the marginal principle, right? And I want you to look at what that means. That means that in order to hire the right number of workers, firms have to set the value marginal product of labor equal to the wage rate. Now, a lot of firms don't know this. They don't think through the math because they just do it by you hire more people and you make more money. So you keep hiring more people. At some point, you hire that 5th worker, you lose money, and you're like, I can't afford to keep that guy around, and you let him go. And then you fall back to 4. And you're like, okay, this is about as good as I can do. So people can do this without knowing how they're doing it. They just look at their profits, and when their profits are maximized, they stop. But what they've done in the background, implicitly, in order to maximize their profits, they've set the value marginal product of labor equal to the wage rate. That's the underlying math that dictates that optimal decision. Now, why is that important? This is extremely profound, and I want you guys to make sure you get this. The value marginal product of labor is what each worker is worth to the firm. The addition of another worker, that the value marginal product of labor is the value of that worker to the firm. It's the benefit of hiring that worker. It's what gives them their revenues. That's their benefit, is the value of that benefit. So that's the marginal benefit of hiring the next worker, is the value marginal product of labor to the firm. The wage rate is how the market values those workers, right? So the decision is and it's what you pay. It's what the firm has to pay the workers, is the wage rate. So in order to maximize their profits down here behind my head, a firm has to pay the workers exactly what they're worth to the firm at the margin, that $40 thing. So right at that point where each worker is now worth $40 to the firm, that's what their value is to the firm. That's what they get paid. Think about LeBron James. LeBron James gets paid exactly what he's worth, and that amount of money is enormous in normal times. Right now, like I said, it's going to be tough. I feel for the NBA basketball players who aren't making $8 million a day right now. But in normal times, what does LeBron James sell? Well, he sells tickets to games, right? And he sells a very high quantity of tickets to games. And how much do people pay for those tickets? Astronomical prices for those tickets. He also puts viewers on TV, because when they broadcast his games on TV, people tune in and they can sell advertising. He sells tennis shoes for Nike. He sells jerseys, for Champion, all the companies that endorse him. He's selling a lot of that quantity at a very high price tag. So what's his value marginal product of labor? It's enormous. How many t-shirts am I selling? None, because I'm not famous like him. So this idea that NBA basketball players are overpaid, they're not. They're paid exactly what they're worth. And if Cleveland is not paying LeBron exactly what he's worth, what will he do? He will take his talents to Los Angeles is what he'll do. And he'll go over there and hang out and play. And so in a competitive market, workers are paid exactly what they're worth, and it creates some astronomical salaries for people because they're just so productive. They produce a high quantity of things that people value very highly, and that's what we want. Now, I don't agree that people value NBA basketball that high. I don't. I think it's not a good form of basketball. I don't think it's a good game. I don't think it's very entertaining, actually. There are some acts of phenomenal athleticism which I can catch in the highlights. I don't need to sit through a whole boring game. But you can argue that our priorities are off, and I think we're learning something about our priorities right now, because NBA was one of the first things to go when things got tough. But at the end of the day, whatever the times, how we choose to value things and how we choose to express that in the marketplace by our consumption decisions is sending the signal to the firms to tell them what to produce. And those are some of the things that are going on right now. Okay. Real quickly, let me go back to on the supply side. What can cause an increase? Well, first, technology can cause an increase in demand. So you got supply shifters and demand shifters. I'll let you look those up in the chapter. That's easy enough for you guys to look at. Things like alternative opportunities, our taste for work. Sometimes there's if there's a big increase in the market in the market for pears, then you might have apple pickers going over to the pear market. So you can get an increase or decrease in supply that way. You can get increases and decreases in demand based on the output price, based on new technologies. What does a new technology do to the marginal product of labor? A new high quality ladder will increase the marginal product of labor for all workers. That'll cause their value marginal product to go up, and it'll cause their wage to follow, because it'll be profitable for the firms to transmit those things through like that. So at the end of the day, what are you paid for? There's a big part on productivity and wages. Immigration can cause an increase in supply, right? An increase in supply is to the right, and a decrease in supply is to the left. We always know that. Same thing for demand. An increase in demand is to the right, and a decrease in demand would be to the left. And we're seeing a decrease in demand for workers right now, and that's going to cause wages to come down and the amount of workers hired to reduce. We've got 17 million workers that have been laid off, and wages are falling dramatically. So we're in this huge, what can cause a huge decrease in demand for workers? Well, a big quarantine, a complete, when people just shut down and don't go to restaurants, there's a huge decrease in demand for restaurant workers. And that's being transmitted by us not going out and consuming those things. That's falling squarely on the restaurant workers, the bartenders and the cooks and everybody like that. And they're gonna need some assistance from, if you've got friends like that, who are doing. My son he was working at a restaurant. He was gone. That job is gone. Luckily, I can support him. All right. So immigration, workers coming into the country or leaving the country, that can cause an increase or a decrease in the supply, and that's going to cause wages to adjust. Okay, real quickly, what have we learned here? We've learned that your wage is a function of your value marginal product of labor, or how efficient and effective you are at producing goods and services. And the question is, what is it that determines how productive you are? And that's the key term there, is your productivity. The more productive you are, the higher your marginal product of labor, the more valuable you're going to be to the firm in terms of your value marginal product of labor, and consequently the higher wage rate you're going to have. So if you want a higher wage rate, how do you get it? Well, you got to produce stuff that's of value to people, and you want to be as productive as possible. What makes you more productive? Human capital. Things like education, training, experience, all of those things add to your human capital and make you worth more. When I first got out of grad school, I had a lot of education. I didn't have a lot of experience. And I didn't have a lot of human capital in education or in consulting work. But over the past 20 years that I've been a professor, I've been doing more and more research in more and more applied research, and culminating in some of the Canadian tobacco work, litigation work that I've been doing. And I'm one of the few people on the planet now that can do that. I've produced a high level of human capital where I'm very productive. I was able with my travels to Canada, even during the virus. I've learned how. I've spent 10 years doing this. I got there, and the attorney said, "Can you get us this product? Can you get us this report by the end of March?" And we're like, "Yeah." And that was before the coronavirus hit, and we had a month to do a project that was obnoxiously complex and complicated. And there are very few people on the planet that could do that. And what did that do? Well, I was super productive. I was able to get all this stuff done because I have a lot of experience in that area. And as a result, I was paid very well for that. My value marginal product was very high. The guy that I work with is even more skilled and has more human capital. He has more publications than me. He has more experience, more years. He's older than me. He's just got more of that. And his wage rate is twice mine. He's able to charge twice as much as I am because of his experience. So your productivity, but he can outproduce me. He can make more. He can do more economics than I can. So that's the key. If you want more wage, you got to increase your human capital. Your productivity is up to you. And that's one thing that you're doing in college is ramping up your productivity. Okay, where are we at? Almost time for class to end. Have a look at the other factors of production, land markets, and capital markets. I'm going to quickly show you here in the last minute how to do those. New, don't save. That was got kind of messy. There's the rental rate. That's the rental rate of land for the natural resource markets, and we use T, and you just have a supply and a demand, and that produces your rental rate here, your RR of T, your rental rate of, and the quantity of T, T star, whatever. That's the cross there. And then you've got the rental rate for capital. I won't spell it out. The rental rate for capital, and we use K, for the phonetic K for the quantity there. Same thing, 0 down there. You've got your supply and your demand, and you got that, and then that's your K star, and that's your rental rate of capital. All right, same thing. It's just the wage and quantity, or the wage and the labor. All of these factors markets are linked together, meaning it's the worker that makes the machine more valuable, and it's the machine that makes the worker more valuable. And so look at the bubonic plague example in the book. That'll be something for you to do. It should be of interest right now because we're in a pandemic, and the bubonic plague was a pandemic that wiped out a lot of the labor. What that did was decrease the demand for capital, but it also decreased the supply of workers in the labor market. And if you do that, if you look at the labor market over here, supply, demand, and then that's the wage rate, and that's labor, it decreased the supply of workers, and that caused the wage rate of workers to go up. So the poor workers, even though they were dying, the remaining workers found an increase in their wage rate. But because of this, there was a decrease in demand for machinery and equipment and tools, and a decrease in demand for land resources, and the landowners saw decreases in their wealth as their rental rate plummeted for their resources. So that's called factor linkage. Have a look at that, and that's everything. I'm going to put a test up on D2L. You guys will be responsible for getting that test in, upload. So it'll probably be multiple choice test. I'll just let you guys do a multiple choice test at home. Take your time on it. It'll be due, let's say Friday by midnight. And let's get that done this week. And then next week we'll pick up with chapters 10 and 11 and go from there. So I'll get that test uploaded. It'll just be a regular test, probably 40 questions, multiple choice. You guys take your time with that. Get it done this week though, and get that. I'll have instructions. What I would suggest you do is just make up a a Word file, Microsoft Word, or even if you don't have Microsoft Word, you can use whatever Notepad, save it as a text file and upload it. Your answers, your A, B, C, D, your multiple choice answers, just make up a file, 1A, 2B, 3A, 4D, whatever the answers. Those aren't the answers. Don't do those answers. Do the right answers. But put the numbers and then your 1 dot and then the answer, 2 dot the answer, 3 dot, that kind of thing. Just do that. Turn that in. Put your name on the file and turn it in. I'll have all those instructions online. Any questions? I went a minute extra. Hit me with any questions. If not, leave, and I will put that test up and put directions on D2L. And you can always hit me up on my greg.george@mga.edu. I hope you enjoyed today's class. I sure did. Time flew by for me. It was probably boring as hell for you guys, but I kept going. I was ranting a little bit. Like I said, go ahead and leave if you want to. I'll just keep talking until someone asks a question. Last time I left, someone had asked a question about the test, and I'd already there was a delay, and when I logged off, I saw the question get asked. I was like, ooh, I'm gonna put those tests up. So I'll hang around a while, but you guys are free to go. If you have any questions, I'll answer those now, but you're free to go. Class is dismissed. See how rapidly you guys flee. Or I could just do some streaming. I could talk more. I might just continue streaming for the hell of it. I enjoy streaming. I enjoy sitting here talking to my computer at my house by myself. There you go, Aladdin. What you got? We'll by the end of the semester, whatever the end of the semester is, we'll get those. I'll give you to the very last day of the semester, whatever the last day of final exams is. So look up on D2L or on the website on mga.edu. Look at the academic calendar, and whatever the last day of final exams are, we'll just do that. Normally, it would be the last lecture day, which is like April 30th or something. Whatever the last exam day is fine. I'll put that up on D2L too. I'll make note of that on D2L. I'll find out what that day is and put it up there. But it's just the last day of final exams. Just too lazy to look it up right now. I could literally look it up right there. I could type it in and do it. I'm feeling lazy. I'm going to go ahead and do that. Let me do that for you. www.mga.edu. Menu. Academic calendar. What are we in? Spring 2020? Academic calendar. Here you go. I'll do that. I can't put that up there. Here. Yes, this is the final exams. Full session is the second column. May 5th. Tyler, yes. Yes, I've seen them fly by, but they have not interfered with my astronomy. I see satellites when I'm doing astrophotography. They fly by all the time, and you take a bunch of pictures of some celestial object for a couple minutes each frame, and every now and then a satellite flies by while you're doing a frame, but you might take 50 frames, and maybe 2 or 3 of them have satellites in them, and you just throw those out. It's going to get worse, though. Yeah, so May 5th, we'll make May 5th the day that your papers due. Any other questions about coronavirus or how we're all doomed? I can talk about that stuff, too. If you have any questions, you got access to a PhD economist who knows a lot about this stuff. If you got any questions, if you're concerned about anything. And I have been kind of a Debbie Downer, because economics is the dismal science, right? Resources are scarce, we're all going to die, all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, as long as we recognize those things, then we make good decisions, then we don't put ourselves into a bind. But when we make bad decisions, that's when we get ourselves. That's when I start to get a little perturbed. All right, I'll wait a little longer. Looks like I've got a few questions in there. If there's any more, let me know. If not, I can see most of you are leaving. That's good. Got other things to do. Got to go work. Go make something. Go pick some apples. Are there apples out there right now? It's not the season for apples. All right, what do you got there? Yeah, that's a good question, Tyler. I think there will be I think there will be, I don't know how many Rona murders there are going to be. People in their house together, pent up with each other for a month or two. Hopefully the number of Rona babies outnumbers the number of Rona murders. I can only imagine if my son were stuck here with me, God, we would have already killed each other. We would have done one of those stupid things where we both would have been swinging. We would have punched each other at the same time and knocked each other both out and died. I mean, there's just, because, I mean, I'd have irritated him more than he would irritate me. I know that. Because he's cleaner, he's neater than I am. I tend to be a little messy. Yeah, there's a big mess around me right now you can't see. So I think there's going to be all kinds of things. That's actually a great question, Tyler. Also, in terms of what are some of the things that are going to happen, and these are the unintended consequences, right? No one intended there to be a baby boom, right? There's also, what about the natural socialization of teenage boys and girls, right? Who are normally during this time socializing with other kids in real life, and developing, their social roles. And that's being stunted now. We're stunting a lot of things. We're stunting a lot of development. And so, yeah, there might be more babies. That's a good thing. There's going to be Rona babies. This whole social distancing thing, I think that's going to have psychological impacts on us. I think it's going to raise stress levels, all kinds of things that are going to happen as a result of this decision. And if you think about it, all we're worried about is the coronavirus, and nobody's worried about all of these potential pregnancies, right? That who knows if those kids are going to be a population demographic bubble that's going to bankrupt us or something. And what about the resources we're going to need? We're going to have a bunch of damn ventilators, but there won't be enough like obstetrician and OBGYN rooms to deliver all those babies, not enough delivery rooms. So maybe we need to start making delivery rooms. So we're not thinking about anything else right now. What about if an asteroid strikes? It's like, I guess we were so focused on the coronavirus, we didn't think about asteroids. What about a volcano? Hell, we had tornadoes in Macon. And it's like, was anybody prepared for that? Did anybody was that on our radar? I mean, barely. So yeah, I think there will be, Tyler. I think there will be Rona babies. But what about the socialization of young teenage kids? And is that going to mean that later that we're going to have some kind of, psychopathy, some kind of, is there some stunting of development? We're going to have a bunch of like obnoxious frat boys coming out of this. I don't know. There's all kinds of things. We are messing around with complicated systems, and we're suppressing patterns. We're suppressing ecosystems. We're changing the environment right now. We're literally like not polluting as much right now. And we've been going through this global warming deal. Well, are we going to have an ice age now because we've shut down all the global warming? Like, that'd be funny. What if we just get dropped into a big old ice age? It'd be funny. It'd be kind of horrible, but you know what I'm saying. It's like all these things. No one's talking about any of the possible stuff. And there's all kinds of things. I'll guarantee you this: 1 year from now, we are going to be talking about these things. 1 year from now, or 2 years from now, we'll be saying things like these. We'll see the population bubble. We will see. What did we put on the back burner? What did we sacrifice? What were the real economic costs of this? And there's going to be some weird ones. Just prepare. That was a clever one. The fact that the Rona babies is a great one. A great example is something that you can kind of predict that's going to happen, right? But what about the things we can't predict? Are there, the fact that we're quarantining from all of these different viruses right now? Not only are we hiding from the coronavirus, we're hiding from the influenza. So we're saving lives right now. A bonus is that we're getting extra life savings from that. But what are those people whose lives we save going to do with that extended life? Are they going to be productive, or is it people that are going to be non-productive? Are we, those are going to have impacts on the economy down the road. And I say that, I don't know, that sounded kind of bad. I'm not saying what you may have thought I was saying. What I'm saying is viruses these kind of things tend to severely impact the retired community, and the retired community are not part of the production in the economy. They've already finished their role of producing in the previous economy, and now they take from the production. It's like they're on Social Security, whatever. So they're kind of a net negative on the economy because they've already finished their production, and now they're living off their savings and Social Security and stuff like that. And we pay for a lot of those: Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security. So those numbers are all changing from what they otherwise would have been. And that's good. Grandma's going to live, right? But it's also going to be costly then, that we're going to have more Social Security payments going forward. And that's going to hurt our budget, which we just ran another $2.2 trillion into debt. So these are going to be big financial issues going forward. I'm not saying that it would be better if Grandma died. I'm not saying that. I'm saying it's going to be expensive that she lived, period. Done, full stop. And that's good. I'm glad she lived, and I'm willing to pay that price. But we're going to have to pay that price. Make no mistake about it. Otherwise something else would have happened. But then that's money that we're spending on that we're not spending on other things. And again, in a world of scarce resources, we just want to make these decisions optimally. I like the Rona baby thing, though. Any other questions? Kind of went off on a bender there. I think that the two people that are still here fell asleep, and it's just I've got an hour and a half. That's pretty good. It's a pretty good amount of time to put in on your class. I'm only supposed to be here for an hour and 15, an hour and a half. All right, guys, I'm going to call it. No other questions. I'm going to end the stream, and I will catch up with you guys next week. Next class will be same thing next week, Monday.